If you're a construction project engineer or junior construction project manager and you're struggling to understand the role of the schedule in delivering a project, or maybe you just want to master these fundamental skills to help accelerate your career, then this video is for you. In this video, we're going to be discussing construction project scheduling, so you understand the fundamental construction project management skill, and we want to equip you with the tools and processes to apply it to your project. Before we get started, a little bit about us. My name's Tim, and I'm a senior project engineer with almost 10 years experience in the infrastructure industry. On top of that, I've done my PMP, so Project Management Professional, and I'm a chartered professional engineer in electrical engineering and project management. I'm making these videos in collaboration with my colleague Ashley, who's a senior commercial risk manager with almost 15 years experience in the industry. And together, we've made Construct IQ, a training academy to teach junior construction managers and project engineers the fundamental skills they need to excel and thrive in the industry. We've helped over 20,000 students, and 94% of students surveyed said that mastering these skills helped accelerate their careers. This talk is part of a series of talks we're doing on the fundamental construction project engineering skills. And in this one, Understanding the Schedule, we're going to give an overview of construction project scheduling. We're going to talk about the tools and techniques as a project engineer that you'll be applying in your job. And then we're also going to talk about the role of the project engineer in administering the schedule on a major construction project. For the structure of this talk, we're going to start off with a definition. So we'll talk about what construction project scheduling is. We're then going to talk about why it matters. Why is scheduling one of the fundamental, if not the fundamental, construction project management skill? We'll talk about the stages of project scheduling. We'll talk about the role of project scheduling in the project lifecycle. And we'll talk about the different roles and responsibilities in managing the schedule. So what is construction project scheduling? The easiest way to define it is the set of tools and processes that we use to make sure the project finishes on time. At its fundamentals, that's what it is. It's a set of tools and processes, and its goal is to make sure that we finish the project scope before the deadline we set for the project. So why does scheduling matter? Why is it one of the fundamental project management skills, and why is it such a big part of our role as construction project engineers? To answer this question, rather than discussing all the tools and processes that make up scheduling and working out how they map across to the project outcomes, we're going to answer this a different way. We're going to look at what constitutes a successful project, and then we'll reverse engineer this and see how scheduling is the building block of a successful construction project. To answer this question, we first need to define project success. At the end of the day, we're construction project engineers, and we're going to likely be employed by a general contractor or some other form of contractor. So construction contractors are businesses. Businesses operate to make money. So if we look at what constitutes a successful project from the perspective of a contractor, at the end of the day, it's making a profit. How does a company make a profit? Well, their revenue exceeds their costs. Okay, starting off with looking at the revenue side of things, first thing we have to do to get any revenue at all is to get paid by the client. Why is a client paying us? Well, it's because we're fulfilling our contractual obligations. As a contractor, we've signed a contract with the client to say that we're going to finish a project, we're going to build a new bridge, we're going to deliver a piece of infrastructure, and at the end of the day, that's what they're paying us for. So the first thing we need to do is finish the project scope. The next thing we need to do is we need to finish the project on time. Construction contracts have in them clauses that penalize contractors for finishing late. And when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. A client is paying us to build something for them, but they're also paying us to build it within a fixed time frame, whether that be 6 months or whether that be a year. When we sign the contract, we'll agree to a finish date with the client. For every day we're late in finishing the project, we'll get hit with delay penalties. So it's really, really important to make money to finish on time. On top of this, we also need to manage the contract with the client and ensure we get what we're entitled to. So if we've agreed to build a bridge in 6 months and a client asks us for a whole lot of additional stuff, then we need to claim an extension of time. So managing this contract with the client will be an important part of maximizing your revenue. Then on the other side, we have our costs. To minimize our costs, we need to deliver the project efficiently and effectively. This means coordinating and scheduling the works so that we minimize our costs. So this is things like making sure our labor is productive, making sure that materials are on site when we need them, making sure that plant isn't standing around not being used, and making sure that when our subcontractors come to site to do a task, that everything's ready for them. So we really need to schedule and coordinate all the tasks so everything runs smoothly. That way we'll keep our costs down. The next thing we need to do is we need to finish the project fast. Every day the project runs, we'll be paying for staff salaries, we'll be paying for office facilities, we'll be paying for lunch rooms, we'll be paying for a security guard at night to come around and check the gates. All these costs will accrue day by day. So the faster we finish the project, the less of these costs we're going to have to pay. And then finally, we need to manage our impact on stakeholders. As we'll talk about later, happy stakeholders means a good project. The schedule contributes to every single one of these outcomes. Schedule is a tool that we'll use to sequence and schedule the works, coordinate with the client and stakeholders, minimize our costs, avoid delayed penalties, make good decisions, and comply with the contract. And we'll go through each of these individually and explore what it means in more depth. Firstly, to sequence and schedule the works. Any construction project involves thousands of different activities. You think about what goes into building a house, and I'm sure you'll end up with a list of 500 tasks if you spend some time brainstorming. Each of these tasks can then be broken down into subtasks, and each task has different dependencies, durations, and linkages. Somebody needs to make all these different tasks happen. Let's take, for example, the foundations of a building, and we'll break down what's involved in this task. So we need to start with the excavation, we need to dig out for the foundations, then if they're a concrete foundation, we'll start with all the formwork. If there's sort of like electrical or mechanical penetrations through the slab, those will have to get installed. We'll have to do the steel fixing, then we'll have to pour the concrete and strip the formwork. We can then take this another step further and look just at steel fixing and think about all the tasks that went into the steel fixing. So to begin with, we'll need to find someone to supply the steel reinforcement. We'll need to award a contract. We'll need to get quotes and award a contract with them. We'll need to develop fabrication drawings. We'll then need to get these fabrication drawings approved to check they're correct before they go off and start making steel. We'll then need to get the steel delivered to site. Before we start placing the reinforcement, someone's going to have to inspect it and check it's okay to use. Then we'll have to place the reinforcement, and then we'll have to do a pre-pour inspection to check that it's all been placed correctly. I hope you can see from that example how much goes into every single task on the project. And somebody has to organize all this. Somebody has to work out when the task is going to occur, what tasks are important, what to prioritize, when to do them, and what tasks are delaying us. And the schedule is the answer to all of these questions. The schedule also helps us to coordinate and manage stakeholders. Projects are disruptive. Think about a road project or a new highway project. You'll need to shut roads, relocate utilities, divert buses. There's so much disruption that goes into a construction project. And you start to think about all the different stakeholders that are impacted. Obviously, we've got the client, but there's also utilities, there's public users, there's residents, there's subcontractors, there's all sorts of different people that are impacted by a project. The schedule is also a fundamental tool that we use to minimize costs. When we talk about construction costs, there's two buckets of costs we have to consider. There's our direct costs. These are the costs to physically complete the construction works. For example, pouring a concrete foundation or digging a hole. These are the construction activities these are the costs associated with the construction activities that need to occur to keep the project moving and get the work done. On the other hand, we have our indirect costs. Indirect costs are the costs incurred to manage, supervise, and coordinate the works. These are things like staff salaries, office rentals, toilet rentals, vehicles, the ongoing reoccurring costs to manage the works. The schedule is a key driver of all of these costs. The schedule allows us to minimize our direct costs. It allows us to coordinate and manage the works efficiently and effectively. So we don't have laborers standing around, we don't have workers standing around, we don't have subcontractors waiting for things, we're not waiting for materials. By having a coordinated and properly produced schedule, we can plan and coordinate all the direct activities to make sure they're done smoothly and efficiently and keep our costs down. And for our indirect costs, there's two types of indirect costs we have to consider on the project. There's our one-off, non-recurring costs. So these are costs like hiring new staff or setting up our office facilities. These are one-off, non-recurring costs. But then most of our indirect costs are recurring costs. So these are costs that are paid throughout the project. So for example, staff salaries, which would be paid monthly, the hire of office buildings, the hire of toilets. These costs are all proportional to the duration of the project. So the longer the project goes, the more these costs accrue. So if we can finish a project in a year as opposed to 2 years, our recurring indirect costs will be half because the project's faster. And because we can finish the project faster, we can also make sure we finish the project on time. This allows us to avoid liquidated damages. And as I've already discussed, these are penalties that contractors pay to clients when they finish the works late. These can be massive, things like thousands of dollars a day that a contractor is paying for every day they finish the project late. As a construction manager and project engineer, you will be making a ton of decisions. Effectively, that's what project managers are paid to do, make good decisions. On a construction project, we'll be faced with all sorts of decisions. Some examples of which: should we pay an additional mobilization to our subcontractor to start early? Should we ramp up with extra resources now or wait? Or what's going to happen if our materials are delayed to site? There are thousands of different decisions we're going to need to make on the project, and better decisions mean better project outcomes. So the more accurate the information, the predictions we can make, the better our decisions are going to be. The schedule is one of the key tools we use to do this. You think about what a schedule really is. It's a plan of how we're going to finish the project. It allows us to predict what's going to happen to the future. So for example, thinking about whether to bring our subcontractor in early, we can look at the schedule. We can make an assessment. Are they going to have continuity of work? Are they going to run out of things to do? Are they going to have to leave site and charge us another mobilization? Or if we push them back too late, are they not going to be ready to hand over to another trade? These are all decisions that the project schedule helps us make. And while contractually we have to finish the project on time, another thing in most construction contracts, which most people don't realize, is that the contract specifies that as the contractor, we need to develop and maintain a construction program. This means we're contractually required to produce a schedule and then keep it accurate and up to date. We'll have to regularly demonstrate to the client that we're maintaining progress with the plan. If there's a massive deviation from the schedule, it's actually a form of contractor default. So the client could potentially cancel the contract if we're late in progress. And to do this, we need to develop and maintain an accurate schedule. As you can see, all in all, scheduling is a fundamental tool that we use to deliver a construction project successfully. Now we're going to move on to looking at the different stages of construction project scheduling. Project scheduling can be broken down into two different stages. We've got the development stage, where we create a realistic, achievable plan of how we're going to finish the project. And then we've got the implementation stage. This is where we take this plan and then put it into action. So often, people think of scheduling as just developing a plan, but a plan has no value unless we implement it. Schedule development is creating a realistic and achievable plan of how we're going to complete the project scope. A project schedule is a list of activities with start and finish dates, durations, and linkages. The schedule development process is the steps we follow to create this plan. So first, we need to identify all the activities we need to complete the project. We then need to sequence these activities. We then need to estimate how long each one will take. We need to develop a model that combines all this information together in the form of a Gantt chart. We then need to optimize and analyze this. We need to make sure that the model we've created isn't going to violate any constraints. So does it actually show we're going to finish the project on time? And then we need to get stakeholder review and buy-in. However, if we build a plan and do nothing with it, all we've done is waste our time. The only value a plan has is if it's followed. That's why part 2 of project scheduling is schedule implementation. This is where we take our plan and put it into action. This is the biggest part of scheduling that everybody misses. People think of it as planning, our scheduling, as sitting on Microsoft Project, listing our activities and sequencing. In my experience, the really hard part about scheduling is actually implementing it. So we need to also understand the tools and techniques behind schedule implementation. So these are the steps we need to follow to take this plan and put it into action. The first of these is to understand and interpret the overall project schedule. Then need to develop a short-range program. We then need to look at every activity in the short-range program and understand what needs to be in place to complete the works. We need to pay attention to lead times and how long it takes to get these different things in place. And then we need to implement them and then carefully track and monitor progress. We need to know exactly how much work is getting done versus our plan. And then if there's deviations from the plan, so if we're falling behind schedule, if we're not meeting our productivity targets, we then need to work out what's going wrong and implement corrective actions. So far we've looked at scheduling from the perspective of fundamental project management concepts. Now we're going to take it and look at it from the perspective of how it's actually used and implemented on construction projects. So we'll look at the different types of construction project schedules and the different levels, so the different scopes that these schedules cover. While these project management concepts are still the same for developing and implementing the schedule, the way they're implemented in practice on construction projects and the way project engineers use schedules varies. So there's a concept in construction management and construction project scheduling, which is the different levels of schedules. So you start with the high level schedules, the master project schedule. This is the level 1 schedule that covers the entire project scope. And then as you move down the levels in the schedule, each schedule narrows down in the scope that it focuses on and the time period or time horizon that it covers. So if you start at the top with a level 1 master project schedule, this is the schedule that covers the entire project scope. So it covers every single activity from design to procurement to construction to commissioning. Then these schedules get broken down into packages or areas. So you might have a schedule just for the design or the schedule for the construction of a certain scope of the project. For example, if we're talking about a highway project, you might have a schedule that focuses just on a specific bridge that's getting built. Then you have your short-term and mid-range schedules, which are the below-the-line schedules. These are the ones that project engineers and delivery engineers manage. So these are your 4 to 6 week and 3 week look-aheads that are used for understanding every activity that has to happen on site and coordinating them in detail. So I've put a line across the screen so you can see these different types of schedules. Above the line, you have the schedules that are managed by the project controls and planning team. These are the bigger package area schedules and ultimately the master project schedule that the client sees. The project controls team will pretty much be full-time developing, monitoring, and updating these schedules so they're still relevant and useful. Then you've got the below-the-line schedules. These are the schedules that the construction project engineers manage, which are your 4 to 6 week and 3 week look-aheads. These are the short-range programs that are used for coordinating and managing everything on site. While the project controls and planning team will use software like P6 or even Microsoft Project to develop these schedules, the construction team will probably use something as simple as Microsoft Excel or even just an office whiteboard to schedule and plan these activities. This then takes us to the role and responsibility of a construction project engineer in managing a schedule. There's really 4 key things you need to be able to do as a project engineer to effectively implement construction project scheduling. Number 1 is just to understand the overall project scope and the overall project schedule. By being able to read and interpret the master project schedule, you can see how your package of works fits into the overall broader picture. The second is you need to be able to from reading and interpreting the master project schedule, you need to be able to take out a chunk of this for your package of works and develop a short-range program. This is where you look at, say, an activity in the master project schedule and you decompose it into a highly detailed list of activities that you're going to use to manage the construction works on site and to coordinate everything that's happening. Then you need to be able to monitor and track progress for the activities you're managing. You need to know exactly how much work's getting done and where you are versus where you should be. And then with this information, you can then, if progress is deviating from the plan, so if we're well behind our plan, you need to be able to come up with corrective measures. This is where you look at where an activity should be, you understand why it's not up to scratch, and then you work out what you can do about it. In summary, this is just the beginning of our series of talks on construction project engineering and specifically project scheduling and how project engineers need to be able to use construction project schedules. In the talk, we covered how project scheduling is a tool for success and a fundamental construction project management skill. We spoke about how it's a tool that's used to plan, coordinate, and deliver construction works. We looked at the different stages and processes used for scheduling. We spoke about the different schedule levels, and then we finished off by looking at the role of a project engineer in managing the schedule. If you enjoyed this video, then definitely stay tuned because we're doing a series of talks on the 6 fundamental construction project engineering skills. We're talking about scheduling, procurement and contracts, quality, design management, estimating, and cost control. And also, if you liked it, make sure to click on the link in the description and it'll take you to our Learning Academy Construct IQ.